Handling objections is one of the most important things that we do as salespeople, but some of the worst objections are the ones that are very nebulous and unclear, the ones where the customer says it's too expensive, or it'll never work here, or the dreaded, we're not sure. Well, today I'm going to help demystify some of these objections for you and give you some tactics that you can use immediately to handle them in your sales cycles. Welcome back to another episode of Sales Lab Live. I'm David Premer. Objection handling, I know it's tough out there. And the problem with objection handling, oftentimes, not to unnecessarily dive into slides too quickly here, one of the biggest problems with objection handling is that oftentimes, and I call this the objection handling iceberg, what the customer says, right? Like, it's too expensive, it'll never work here, or we're not sure, is actually really just the stated objection, but it doesn't necessarily point to like what the root cause is. And so there's always like a bit of an investigation that we have to do when we hear these kind of, unclear, nebulous objections. And I wish I could tell you right now that there was a one-hit crush, that the customer says this, column A, and you say this, column B, and the objection magically goes away. But that's not how objection handling works. And unfortunately, we teach salespeople too often that it is a column A, column B exercise. Customer says this, you say this, and the thing goes away. But the reality is that's not how it works. Like anything, objection discussions are conversations, just like discovery, just like your sales pitch. There should be some back and forth. And as we learn a little bit more about the customer and their problem, we're going to be in a much better position to solve that. So when we hear things like, for example, it'll never work here, or it's too expensive, or the dreaded we're not sure, we're not really sure like what that thing points to. And so in my content, in my training, in my sales academy, I actually go through, and I actually talk about this in my book as well, I actually go through a bit of a methodology, a bit of a process that you can use to handle objections. Now, we're not going to go through this entire thing today, like that could be for another time. But the idea is, how can we focus on the kind of response that we can give, right? So we get that objection. What are some of the things that we can say back to the customer once we've clarified, once we've softened, once we have a better sense of what the issue is? Now, when we think about this problem of, hey, look, customer saying we're not sure, it can mean all sorts of things, right? Like if, for example, customer says to us, hey, David, your solution looks okay, but we're just not sure. And by the way, when we say it's not sure, that can take all sorts of different forms, right? But if we were to say, David, just out of curiosity, hey, look, I totally get it. And I want you to make sure that this is the right solution for you and that you feel good about it. This is actually kind of going back to my framework. That's what I refer to as acknowledging and softening. Basically, we're moving the dialogue from the parts of the customer's brain associated with kind of like aggression and antagonistic tendencies to the part that's associated with logic and reason, so we can do a better job of disarming that objection. And so when we say, hey, David, like when you say you're not sure, what do you mean? And we could even prime the conversation. And I love my topic of assumptive priming, where we give the customer ideas. Typically when people say they're not sure, it typically points to it could be an issue of price, it could be an issue of timing, it could be an issue of priority, right? Like, what would be your issue? And what I'm assuming here is you've gotten down to some more specific version of this objection. So, hey, look, we're not sure about the timing. We're not sure if the solution's going to work. Not sure about the investment. Hey, look, maybe you're selling a newfangled technology and we're not sure people are actually going to adopt it. Maybe we're not sure if the value's there. And so now we're in the position where we have a better sense of what the objection's all about, and we can start formulating an opinion of whether or not the customer's in the right mindset, whether or not they're wrong, whether or not they're right, and then we can decide kind of the tactic that we want to use. Now, here's the thing, okay? Whenever you get this objection, we're going to go back to the list here for a second. You get this objection, customer says, hey, look, we're not sure if the timing's right? So either you, or it'll work for us, or we're not sure if the ROI is there, or whatever it is. You can come back to that customer, and you might have a point of view where basically you're saying you're wrong, right? Like, here's why it's going to work for you. Here's why the time is right. Here's why people are going to adopt it. And there's actually nothing wrong with using those tactics, and those tactics can work perfectly well. However, there's this concept that I often think about when it comes to objection handling. When the customer is approaching you with kind of that mindset, they're a little bit antagonistic, and maybe they don't want to do business with you. Maybe they do. Like their mind is kind of scrambled all over the place. So this idea of they have ideas about how they might want to proceed, and you have ideas about how they should proceed. So you have this kind of dichotomy of like your ideas and their ideas. And when we talk to our customers and we say, well, you know what, here's why you should move forward now. Here's why it's actually going to be valuable. Here's why your customers are going to use it or your people are going to use it. Those are your ideas. You're the salesperson. And in a way, you're kind of the enemy. They don't want to hear from you. And the reality is, like, they actually like their ideas a hell of a lot better than your ideas. And it kind of reminds me a little bit of Chris Voss in Never Split the Difference, where he talks about, and I just love this definition, he talks about negotiation. And, or objection handling, or negotiating, it's kind of all the same. He talks about negotiation as, defining it as the art of letting someone else have your way, right? Think about that. The art of letting someone else have your way. So back to this idea that you might have a point of view on how that customer can get over the objection. Like they're sitting on the fence, they're not sure. You might have a perspective on how they can get over that fence, but the customer doesn't want to hear your ideas. They like their ideas a lot more. So the question is, how can you make your idea their idea? Now, again, at the risk of being too kind of, cerebral here and getting into it, because I don't just want to drop tactics on you and say, go out there and do this. I want you to appreciate, as always, like why I'm asking you to do something or telling you to do something. And so I want you to kind of think about this. When you get this objection of, we're not sure, in your mind, after you've kind of clarified and you say, okay, they're talking about priority, or they're talking about timing, or they're talking, whatever it is, they're talking about price, whatever it is they're talking about, I want you to ask yourself this question. Are they right? Are they wrong? Right? And I'll give you an example here. Let's say I'm a personal trainer and someone comes into my gym and, I can see they're kind of not, optimally in shape, and they tell me that they're here because their doctor told them that, hey, look, they got to step on a treadmill in the next few years. Otherwise, bad things can happen to them health-wise. And they come to me and it's obvious. I ask them, are they eating okay? And they say, well, not really. And so they need help. Okay. And then we're having this conversation. And then they give me the, I'm just not sure. Okay. Back to this decision. Are they right? Are they wrong? Well, look, the customer's always right, but the reality is they're wrong. I know better. I know that if they actually start exercising, if they were in shape, if all these good things would happen, that's the right answer for them. And their doctor knows that's the right answer. And they probably deep down inside know that's the right answer as well. So when they say they're not sure, they're wrong. On the flip side, they might come through and they might actually have a point. They might say, look, we got a whole bunch of things going on at the moment in our company. Let's say, you're trying to sell them kind of some kind of software solution. We have a whole bunch of things going on now at our company. And, we have this going on and that going on. And I'm not really sure if the problem that we're trying to solve is big enough. And they say, so we're not sure. And truth be told, back to this question of, are they right or are they wrong? They might be right. They might be right. Right? Or you may not have enough information to make this determination. So the tactic that you use, now I don't want to get overly cerebral here, but the tactic that you use will depend on kind of the point of view, like your point of view on their situation. Now, I'll give you the one for, if they're right? If they're either right or you're not sure. And I've been in this situation before. I was talking to a client a few weeks ago in Texas, and he was telling me that, his team is actually pretty good. They have a well-oiled machine as far as his team goes, and they're very, accomplished, and they're experts in their field. They're actually not historically salespeople, and they've come in and they've assumed these sales roles, and they connect with their customers, and life is good. And so, and then this topic of like, well, we're not sure kind of comes up. And to be honest, I'm not sure either, right? And so I kind of asked the question, hey, look, do you mind if I ask? Because I know going through this, my program and my sales academy and stuff like that, this is not for everyone. And I'm not sure actually if it's for you, because it sounds like things are going pretty good, right? Why would you do this? And this is a tactic I refer to and I practice as validating the fit, right? Where we say, hey, look, this isn't for everyone. I don't know if this is a big enough problem to solve. I don't know yet if this is something that's, for you. And what I'm doing here, and again, you think about solving the objection. What I'm doing here is I'm putting it back on the customer. I'm basically saying, hey, look, I don't know if this is a fit. It sounds like things are going pretty good. And what I want to do there is I either want the customer to clarify what they mean or sell to me or walk away. All of those things are good, right? So if they come to the conclusion, hey, you know what? things are pretty good. You know what? I'm actually in good shape. I probably jumped the gun here a little bit. That's kind of good, right? Because I don't want people in my pipeline and in using my products or services that aren't a good fit. But what happens is sometimes they come back with something you didn't see. They come back with something like, hey, you know what? It's true. Like, things are going pretty good, but we haven't invested in any kind of formal sales training. And, I feel like my team is kind of, jonesing for that a little bit. And to be honest, like, I'm a good sales coach, but I would appreciate someone coming in from the outside and telling the team a little bit more about some of the things that I might be already coaching them on, but they'll have a lot more conviction in terms of doing it if you come in and tell them. And by the way, like, I've talked about this before on the channel, that is a totally valid reason. We often get pigeonholed into thinking that our customers buy our products and services for specific reasons. Like, you invest in sales training because you're expecting to see some kind of increase or uptick in a conversion metric in your sales funnel, and that's going to bring in more revenue, therefore justifying the ROI you're spending on me. At the same time, I train lots of sales teams because the sales leader is kind of a little bit at their wit's end where they're saying, hey, you know what, I'm coaching the team, I'm doing all these good things, but they're not listening to me. I'd like this idea of bringing someone in from the outside, creating more of an event around it, making the team feel like we've invested in them, because not only are they going to start doing this stuff more, but they're actually going to have higher retention rates and they're going to feel more entrenched and engendered to the company because we made that investment. And that is just a legitimate reason to invest in training or anything else. We all make decisions. We talk about this a ton based on emotion, is just as good a reason as anything else to invest in training. So it's the same by the same token. You might have a hidden reason, or your customer might have a hidden reason for why they want to invest in your product or service that you may not think about, and kind of putting it back to them and using a little bit of that validate the fit. If, for example, they're right and you're thinking to yourself, I don't know why they would buy this thing. Put it back on them and say things like, hey, look, this isn't for everyone. Why do you think it might be for you? Or this isn't for everyone. I don't know if you have a big enough problem to solve yet. You mentioned A, B, and C, and use it as an opportunity to do more discovery. But the other option, which is actually a little bit more, for me, I find it a little bit more intriguing, is that what if they're wrong, right? Because in a way, you want to basically tell them that, they're wrong. No, you will not get better if you do not step on the treadmill, if you do not come into the gym, right? And again, I've been in this situation lots of times. I talk to clients, let's say, for example, and they have a certain number of people on their sales team, and they say to me, David, we're trying to figure out when it makes sense to invest in this kind of, formal sales training for a team. We love your stuff. We love what you do. We have 50 sales reps now, but we're planning to grow to 100 by the end of the year. And we're trying to figure out, do we do it now or do we do it later? And, of course, it's completely up to the customer. But, if, for example, they've shared with me that they actually have quite a lot of problems with their sales organization now, their reps are struggling with A, B, and C. As they bring new reps on board, they're also going to struggle because there's no playbook, there's no consistency, there's no kind of formal sales training, there's none of that structure in place. I know that they're going to struggle. Like, if they try to double the sales team and they don't have that in place, they're going to struggle. But if I come out and say, hey, you know what? Here's what I would do. You're going to struggle without the structure in place. You should totally hire me to bring me in and do this stuff. Again, and that might be the case. That's my idea. And people don't like my ideas, right? They like their ideas. And so one of the tactics I love to talk about, and by the way, from a tactical perspective, this is kind of the move list I talk about in my Sales Academy sales training. I talk about this in the book as well. So these are kind of all the moves. The validate the fit, if I kind of go back here for a sec, the validate the fit tactic, which I kind of talked about, was that tactic number 8, which is a little bit more, requiring conviction. It's a little bit riskier, right? Because the customer could say, hey, you know what? I don't need your help. And they go away and, you never hear from them again. But the tactic that I want to talk to you about now is tactic number 5, I refer to as consider the alternative. And this is kind of where you take a step back, right? And you basically agree with the customer and you kind of approach it from the standpoint of saying, hey, you know what? Look, it's true. Like, maybe this doesn't make sense. Like, maybe now is the wrong time, right? And so you basically are kind of agreeing with them. So now they're a little bit more disarmed, a little bit more willing to hear what you have to say. And then what you're going to do is you're going to follow up with a bunch of questions for them to think about, right? You're going to prime them with some questions. So you're going to say things like, hey, you know what? Like, you're right. This may not be the right thing to do. The way I would think about it, and to be honest, I work with lots of clients that I'm going into character, right? I've worked with lots of clients who are in the exact same position, right? They have a certain critical mass of reps. They're growing. They're trying to figure out like when the right time to invest in sales training is. I totally get that. The way they think about it, or the questions that they ask themselves, is they say, okay, let's say I waited a year or to the end of the year to do this. Would the issues that I'm having, would they go away? Would they magnify? Would they get worse? If I didn't have this structure in place, would they be able to, and by the way, you see how I'm kind of looking up at the sky here? Back to our training that we did in the sales lab on being a question barista. Find that out. Doing that on purpose makes you feel like I'm kind of crafting this question on the fly just for you, and which I am, right? But kind of looking around, I won't get into the whole science around that, but I'm making you feel like I'm crafting this for you. So I say, hey, you know what? The question I would ask myself, and the question a lot of my clients in the exact same position ask themselves, is they say, you know, would it be just as easy to grow, scale, when we brought these new reps on board? You know, would they be able to come up to speed as quickly in a year if we didn't invest in this training versus if we did? Now, here's the thing, and again, here's the trick. Not so much a trick, but because I know that this is in the best interest of the customer, like I've kind of made this determination, which requires you to take your happy ears off a little bit, which is a whole other thing, is to say, like, is this actually in the best interest of the customer, what I'm recommending here? Because if it's actually better off for them to wait, then I might suggest that and earn a lot of credibility with the customer. But if I can see that, hey, you know what, this person does need to get on the treadmill, this person does need a nutrition plan, I do need to help them, I might tell that person coming into the gym the same thing. I might say, hey, you know what, you're right. You're always going to have a lot of stuff going on, and this may not be the right time to join the gym. The way a lot of people, when I see a lot of people come into my gym, the way they kind of think about it is, if I didn't do this now, when would I do it? Will the problem go away? Will it get better? A year from now, if I kind of look back and I didn't start the gym, will I be in a better position, a worse position, right? This is what I refer to as, again, consider the alternative. And what you're doing is you're not telling the customer anything. You are planting questions in their mind that are rooted in the feedback and insights that you've gotten from other customers, other people who are in that same position thought the same thing. And kind of here's the way they thought about it. And the idea is you want to get them to come to that same conclusion, right? The fact that you can help them. You are the person that can help them, and they should start now. And that's the idea, right? That's the idea. You want them to come to that conclusion. You want to make their idea, like your idea, essentially their idea. So that's why the consider the alternative is very powerful. And there's lots of different ways that you can ask that question. But here's the thing. If you use this tactic and the customer actually decides that they're actually better off waiting, you know, oh, we're on the fence, we're not sure, we just fell off the fence and it's not on your side, okay? If you are wrong in terms of how you use this tactic, you will actually further entrench them in the side of not moving forward with you, right? So imagine the person who's at the gym says, hey, you know what? It's true. Like in a year, I'll actually be fine. You know, I'm actually not in such a bad position. If I put this priority in front of going to the gym, a year from now, I'm good, right? They will actually be further entrenched in that position. That's why it's really important. Back to, as I show you the slide here, this question of are they right or are they wrong will help you navigate the decision that they're making and navigate the tactic that you're going to use. And again, I told you, there's no one-hit crushes here. Hopefully, you know, in this little Sales Lab Live, we've managed to pick apart a little bit of this kind of concept of, hey, look, we're not sure, and help you understand that it depends on where the customer's coming from. Are they right? Are they wrong? The tactics we can use. And certainly these two things that I've showed you and kind of broken out in a little bit more detail, these are not mutually exclusive. There's lots of things you can do. For example, customer says, hey, look, we're not sure. And you can say, hey, look, what are you not sure about? Is it the price? Is it us as an organization? Is it the timing? They say, you know, oh, it's the price. And they say, hey, look, now we're having a price discussion, right? Of course, you could still use these tactics then. If you don't want to stand pat on the price, you can say, hey, look, totally understand, you know, the price isn't for everyone. And I've had lots of clients that have used that tactic with their customers to basically defend their price. Hey, look, it's not for everyone. This is for organizations who really value these things. And the way they thought about it, you know, again, now I'm going back into the consider the alternative. The way they thought about it was, okay, if I didn't make this investment, how would it work? So again, this idea of using the move list, which is what I talk about in my Sales Academy, is this idea of kind of crafting these narratives. These tactics are not mutually exclusive. I'm just trying to give you a little bit of a mental model here of kind of the right and wrong and directions you can go in. So that is all I got for you today. Objection handling is tough, right? And it takes practice, it takes mindful execution, and it takes that emotional intelligence to kind of sit back and really listen to your customer to figure out what the best approach is. But I hope you've enjoyed this session today. I've enjoyed this session. I always love talking about this stuff, and I hope you have a great rest of your day, and I will see you next time in the Sales Lab.